a hypothetical situation where you have an individual who has atrophied amygdala and who has abnormally functioning orbitofrontal cortex and who has the presence of a variety of substances which are going to further exacerbate the malfunction of these regions, both the impulse control region and the fear processing region. I would say that more likely than not, you're going to have a significant overreaction to misperception.
To what degree would somebody with the presentation that we've been talking about, which you found, Mr. Bradley, to what degree would his ability to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law be affected?
I would say it would be greatly affected by both the misperception and the over-amplification of fear and the ability and the difficulty with being able to regulate impulses properly. So I think the combination of the two would, I think, make it there would be a significant difficulty. I think more likely than not that he would have significant difficulty in being able to regulate his actions appropriately.
So that would be a significant impairment in the ability to conform his conduct to law.
Yes, in my opinion, there would be a significant impairment in his ability to, conform his behavior in conduct with the law.
I want to ask you about, and so, are your opinions stated to a degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
And that is based upon what?
Well, it's based upon my review of the imaging data that I have available in both in the PET scan, that he has both a visual and statistically significant decrease in orbitofrontal cortex metabolism, that he has a significant abnormality in the corpus callosum tractography and the fractional anisotropy. He has significant reduction in the hippocampus and the amygdala, and so these are all, objective deficits on medical imaging in his brain in regions that regulate impulses and fear perception.
Let me take you back to the PET scan imaging for a moment. Just a few questions there. The population, the normative population that you were talking about, now that's a group of people who you have performed images on, and it's been determined that, what's the profile of the people that fit into that normative database, and how many are there?
Well, these are individuals who have been screened for major psychiatric disorders, major neurological disorders, who have had neurocognitive testing, and so we have a group of 20 individuals.
How many?
20.
And what is there a limit, or at least a floor, minimum number of people that would to fill that database for it to be diagnostically useful?
I would say that PET imaging is expensive. Each scan is about $3,000 to $5,000. So plus the neurocognitive testing, and we have multiple peer-reviewed articles in which we have control groups of 12, 15, 20. So I would say that the control group that we have is in the same order of magnitude as generally acceptable scientifically and medically. And so I would say that in general, scientific medical articles, have a minimum number of controls. I would say, say 10, but it goes up from there, to
And how can you rule out differences in the quantitative measures of the corpus callosum and the orbitofrontal cortex of Mr. Bradley? How can you rule out such factors as, let's say, all of the members of the database are white, or they're all older people, which are distinguishable from Mr. Bradley, or they're all females, or how do you control for those types of possible differences and rule them out as possible explanations for the measurable difference that you got of from Mr. Bradley from the normative group?
Well, there's no scientific or medical data that race makes any difference with regards to imaging. and we do take into account age and gender. These are things that have been shown to have some effects. And we have various statistical models for what we do call covariant out age and gender effects. And so these deficits that we're seeing are independent of any age or gender effects after covariating them out.
And how do you rule out, relate back, I should say, the medical presentation of Mr. Bradley at the time of the PET imaging, which was December 23rd of last year, back to March the 6th of 2012? In other words, what you get is a snapshot of, through the PET scan imaging, basically, I mean figuratively speaking, of the presentation of Mr. Bradley on that date, which was at that point a year and 9 months approximately after March 6th.
Well, I would say unless there was some significant change in his neurological or psychiatric condition between March and December, it would be to reasonable degree of medical certainty the December testing would be reflective of the March brain. Now, if there was a significant change in his status, like say he developed new symptoms, or say he had significant head trauma in between, then I don't think it would be indicative. But barring any significant medical major change, I think it would be indicative of his brains in March.
And to what degree did you take into consideration the neuropsychological testing of Dr. Olander?
I think that was very significant in terms of clinical correlation, that there was evidence that he was making a good effort, so that it wasn't that he was trying to, give bad answers. I mean, there's what we call the effort or validity shows that he was making a good effort, but even with good effort, that he showed profound neuropsychological testing deficits by Dr. Olander, things such as information processing speed or other measures. I mean, it was like 5th or 7th percentile, and which are clinically significant deficits, and especially in light of his earlier academic testing. Dr. Olander reviewed his early academic testing when he was in 2nd and 4th grade. I mean, he wasn't at the 7th or 8th percentile; he was like at 40th percentile. So something happened between the time he was a kid in 4th grade and testing now. I mean, something that caused a very significant decline in his cognitive testing. This is what we call an acquired brain injury. I mean, it wasn't like he was born this way and he's always had, functioning at 7th to 8th percentile. Something shifted him from 40th percentile down to 8th percentile, and that early academic testing would be, and the fact that he had relatively normal early academic testing, and the fact that he had very impaired neurocognitive testing now would be consistent with the fact that there's some significant event somewhere along the line that dropped his cognitive functioning down, and it would be consistent with the kind of data that we see on the imaging, that there was some kind of significant history of some head trauma at some point in time that caused these kind of deficits.
Okay, you're not limiting that some incident to just one. It could be more than one, or cumulative, could it?
I can't say if it was cumulative or one. I can say that he does show evidence of a significant damage in terms of the kinds of imaging findings that we're seeing.
Okay. Are you stating to a degree of medical certainty that your neuroimaging results and correlated with the neuropsychological results indicate the presence of brain damage in the corpus callosum and the orbitofrontal cortex, Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
And that the known correlates are the behavior that you described, the increased fear factor and perception of fear where it may or may not exist, and a decrease in impulse control or the ability to moderate his behavior.
Yes.
To a degree of medical certainty.
To a degree of medical certainty, yes.
No further questions.
Okay, cross-examination by the state.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. It's fair to say, is it not, that not all experts in your field are in agreement with your use of PET scans to do neuropsychiatric evaluations?
Yes, you may.
Doctor, you testified this afternoon that the MRI test showed various abnormalities. Is that correct? And you testified that that can be attributed to possible traumatic brain injury
Yes.
or post-traumatic stress syndrome?
The shrinkage in the amygdala hippocampus could be secondary to post-traumatic stress disorder, yes.
Did you prepare a report about your reading of the MRI?
Yes.
Do you have a copy with you, sir?
I have a digital copy on my laptop, and I provided a copy to Mr. Moore.
Yes, you may.
This is the report you prepared, sir?
Yes, it is.
When you prepared that report, did you not attribute the cause of those things either to traumatic brain injury or schizophrenia?
Yes, that's correct.
That's not post-traumatic stress syndrome, is it?
No, that's correct. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not the same as traumatic brain injury or schizophrenia.
Those are two different things.
They are different diagnoses, yes.
Can you explain why you put schizophrenia in your report and you testified here today that it was post-traumatic stress syndrome that caused it?
What I was referring to in the DTI report, more specifically, was the corpus callosum abnormality. The corpus callosum abnormality, the decrease in the fractional and isotope, those red blotches and those straws that were, or fibers that were less thick, that is not the kind of thing that you would see in post-traumatic stress disorder. So that report dealt primarily with the findings in the corpus callosum, which would be either brain injury or schizophrenia. What I was referring to for post-traumatic stress disorder was an additional later analysis I did on quantitative volumetrics, which was the amygdala or hippocampus.
Okay. If I understood your testimony correctly, your position about PET scan is that it captures the functioning or malfunctioning of the brain itself. Is that
Yes.
correct? And the MRI, a normal MRI, would normally capture whether there are organic problems with the brain, the structure of the brain itself.
Well, let's see. There's a conventional MRI sequences, and then there's these advanced sequences.
I was going to get to the
Yes.
advanced one in a minute.
Yes.
So, but with the regular MRI, that would basically just do the, say, the hardware of the
Yeah,
computer?
so the conventional MRI would basically look at the shape of the brain and basically see if there's any significant alterations in the shape of the brain.
And the PET scan will tell you whether there's something wrong with the software that's operating on the computer.
The functioning, yes, that's correct.
Now, I was a little confused about the MRI DTI, which is the study that you had done and sent to you. Is that correct?
Yes, and then that's what we call an advanced sequence.
All right. So does the MRI DTI check the hardware for the computer, or is it checking the software?
It's a hardware that is checking. It's checking for the cable, basically, like the internet cable or phone cables that connect different parts of the brain, and whether those cables are intact or whether there's what we call, leakage, or tears in those cables.
So according to the MRI DTI you did, there are some abnormalities in Mr. Bradley's brain as of the date of the scan, at least, with respect to the straws, I think you described.
Yes, the corpus callosum tractile, those are kind of like the straws or the fibers. It's not as full as a normal, and then the red blotches would be like where the food dye is leaking out of a broken straw. I mean, in an intact brain, you wouldn't see any of that food dye leaking out of the straw. It'd be basically no red blotches on there.
Now, am I correct in understanding your testimony that the scans themselves only show the condition of the brain on the date that the scan was taken?
Well, that's correct. I mean, the scans are of the brain on the date it was taken.
Doesn't show you how long the condition lasted or when it was first imposed upon the brain?
I would say that the scan in and of itself would not indicate how long it's been that way. One would have to have additional information such as whether there had been any change in the status of the individual or whether the individual is relatively stable in order to try to infer how far back that scan would be representative of the brain for.
Now, as far as you are aware, prior to March 6th of 2000, well, actually prior to October 13th of 2013, when the MRI DTI scan was done, and December 23rd of 2013, when the PET scan was done, there were no previous MRI studies or PET scan studies done of Mr. Bradley. Is that correct?
None that I am aware of.
In long-term patients who are followed by physicians over a period of time, there may be multiple scans that are done so that they can be compared from one to the other to see whether a disease is progressing or it's changed any. Isn't that true?
That is true for some cases. That's correct.
And in this particular case, the only picture we have of Mr. Bradley are those pictures taken on October 13 of 2013 and December 23rd of 2013.
Those are the only ones I am aware of, yes.
Now, is it further limited, the testing, the scanning, is it further limited by the time of day that the scan is done?
I would say the DTI and quantitative volumetrics is probably not affected by the time of day.
That one's doing more of the...
And more the hardware, so to speak. The PET scan, if you were to do a PET scan in the middle of the night when someone would normally be asleep, there might be some effect from it being done in the middle of the night as opposed to when they're normally asleep. So that could be a factor.
So if you did the scan at 3 a.m. as opposed to 3 p.m., there may be a total difference in the scan results.
That's correct. If you have someone who is abnormally sleep deprived at the time of scan, and because they're normally asleep at say 2 a.m., you do the scan at 2 a.m., you would see you'd see a different pattern.
Now, as I understood what you testified to, that the scans don't tell you the cause of the malfunction.
That's correct. The scans in and of themselves don't indicate a specific cause.
You've indicated that there may be some causes that could account for the changes or the abnormalities that you've seen, but you don't really know which particular situation it was that caused the abnormality.
That's correct. I can't say, for a given abnormality, that this abnormality was caused by this event on this day, without additional information.
You indicated it could possibly be a traumatic brain injury.
Yes, I think that's the most likely, but yes.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome.
I think that is also likely for some of the abnormalities.
Schizophrenia.
It would be consistent with schizophrenia, but I would say that from what I've seen of his history, it doesn't meet formal criteria for schizophrenia.
Could be drugs, particularly psychotropic drugs.
Drugs would not cause the kind of abnormality that we observe on the PET and DTI.
Do they cause other types of abnormalities?
They can. So, for example, if you were to take cocaine acutely, or you can see an acute reduction in overfrontal metabolism, for example,
How about the patient's mood? Would their mood at the time of the taking of the scan matter as to whether the results are going to be different?
I would say that mood can have an effect if an individual is seriously depressed. If they meet their formal criteria for a major depressive disorder, there are certain PET scan patterns that have been noted in individuals with major depressive disorders.
Right now, since the scans can't tell you exactly what caused the abnormalities that you viewed on the scans, you did request clinical type information to try to find out what might have caused it?
Yes, I recommend clinical correlation, yes.
And did you get Dr. Olander's reports and the documentation that she obtained regarding the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And you reviewed that yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Now, you are aware that the defendant gave a history to Dr. Olander of head trauma.
Yes.
3 different occasions.
Yes.
I think he said that at age 15, which would be about 2005, he fell off the monkey bars,
Yes.
became unconscious.
Yes.
Did you find it unusual that there were no records whatsoever to substantiate that claim?
No, it's not uncommon actually for many head traumas to be undocumented by medical professionals. That's actually been noted in peer-reviewed journals that many head traumas are undocumented.
Well, in this particular situation, he was at school and claims to have fallen off the monkey bars, hit his head, and gone unconscious. Isn't that the type of situation where you would expect the school to call the medics, take the person to the hospital, document it somehow, call their lawyers?
I think ideally that would be true. In reality, unfortunately, schools oftentimes don't often, do things consistently.
In any event, you're not aware of any documentation to verify that he in fact fell off the monkey bars?
I have not seen any written documentation of that. That's correct.
Now, he also gave a history to Dr. Olander of a 2007 motor vehicle accident.
Yes.
And are you aware that he's given different accounts about how exactly that accident happened?
I have seen different accounts, yes.
Are you aware that the medical record, or did you look at the medical records that were obtained by Dr. Olander regarding the motor vehicle accident?
I did not review the medical records directly. I just reviewed her report of the medical records.
Are you aware, from her report at least, that the actual facts of the matter were that there was an accident, but that he declined medical treatment at the time and didn't seek medical help for 2 days?
I remember some to that effect in the report, yes.
And he walked into the emergency room, he was examined and released the same day with a diagnosis of whiplash and knee sprain?
Yes.
And then the third incident that he complained about head trauma would be the 2009 incident where he was hit by a thrown block at the time he was in prison?
Yes.
And are you aware of any documentation at all that would indicate that that in fact happened?
I have not seen any written documentation of that other than what I saw in the report.
So we have him claiming to have had some type of head injury on those 3 specific occasions.
Yes.
And we only have documentation about one of them, which differs from his version about how it happened.
Yes.
Now, are you able to say with any degree of medical certainty that the monkey bar fault caused the malfunctioning that was shown in the scans taken in late 2013?
I cannot say with to reasonable degree of medical certainty that the monkey bar fault was the main cause of any of these abnormalities on the imaging.
How about with any degree of medical certainty that the motor vehicle accident in 2007 caused the abnormalities you observed on the scans taken in late 2013?
I think that that's more likely than the monkey bar incident, because, again, I would say I can't necessarily say that when an accident occurred. All I can say is that I can see the aftermath. I can say that it's consistent with his having had some type of traumatic head injury at some point in the past, that motor vehicle accident would certainly be the type of event that could account for some of these type of findings. But I can't say with 100% certainty that that was definitely it.
I understand. And I take it that would also be true for the incident in 2009 where he was hit in the head with a block thrown by another inmate?
Yeah, I think I would have a similar sentiment.
Can't say with any kind of degree of medical certainty.
I can't say with 100% certainty that that was the specific event that caused these specific abnormalities.
Would it also be fair to say that you can't tell us when the brain was actually damaged that would result in these abnormalities?
I can't say exactly when the damage occurred. That's correct.
Now, can you tell us whether or not the defendant's brain was functioning normally on March 6th of 2012 when he shot Deputy Bill?
I can say that given the abnormalities on the scan, unless there was some significant event between the March date and the imaging date, that the imaging results would likely be representative of his brain functioning on that March date, and that there would be abnormal functioning of the overfrontal cortex, abnormal shrinkage of the amygdala, hippocampus, abnormal corpus callosum, tractography, and fractional anisotropy.
Well, in fact, all of the opinions that you expressed here today for this jury are based on an assumption that those abnormalities existed in Mr. Brandon Bradley's brain on March 6th of 2012 at the time that he shot Deputy Bill. Is that correct?
Well, it's based on, it's a kind of assumption that medical professionals routinely make, which is that unless there's some intervening history, that the imaging, medical imaging, would likely be representative of an earlier, within a time frame, would likely be representative of the brain's functioning earlier, unless there was some significant intervening medical history.
Well, you are aware from reading all of Dr. Olender's report and materials that she submitted to you that prior to March 6th of 2012, the defendant never reported any kind of psychological problems. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
In fact, during that 7-year period between the fall off of the monkey bars and the shooting of Deputy Phil, there's not one documented complaint of any kind of psychiatric, psychological, or mental health problems with Mr. Bradley.
I didn't see any such documentation.
Back when he was first checked into the jail on March 6th and evaluated, did you see the jail records that Dr. Olender got?
No.
He denied mental health problems even at that time. Were you aware, Doctor, that on March 6th of 2012, after the shooting of Deputy Phil, Brandon Bradley was involved in a high-speed vehicle chase, which ended up with his vehicle crashing into a ditch, landing on its side,
Yes, I was aware of that.
where the defendant was not in a seatbelt at the time and was thrown around inside the vehicle?
Objection. That assumes facts, not evidence. May we approach?
Yes, you may.
Doctor, were you aware that Mr. Bradley was in a motor vehicle accident on March 6th, 2012, after the shooting of Deputy Phil?
Yes.
In fact, it took the officers some period of time to get Mr. Bradley out of the vehicle.
I was not aware of the specific duration of time it took for them to get him out of the vehicle.
Were you aware from Dr. Olender's records that she got from the Polk County Jail that he in fact had a fractured hand from the collision, had to be treated in the jail?
I don't recall seeing that specific, the fracture of the hand.
Are you aware that from the jail records at the Polk Institute, the Seminole County Jail, that on September 12th, Mr. Bradley was placed on suicide prevention because he had threatened to harm himself, and he reported that he's now hearing voices?
Yes.
But he declined any kind of medication at that time.
Yes.
And he had not been on medication up to that point. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Are you aware that on December 13th of 2012, and we're talking 9 months after he was arrested for the shooting of Deputy Hill, he again is complaining to the jail folks about hearing voices and is now requesting medication?
Yes.
You're aware that he was placed on risperidone and doxepin?
Yes.
Those are antipsychotic medications
And antidepressants.
and antidepressants. Now, Dr. Olender had her first interview with Mr. Bradley on March 18th of 2013. This is after he's now starting to complain about psychiatric problems. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is the first time he's ever complained to anybody about psychiatric problems, to your knowledge.
Okay, I mean, it's sustained. Rephrase the question.
To your knowledge, is this the first time that Mr. Bradley has ever complained to anybody about psychiatric problems?
I've not seen any prior documentation of any prior complaints.
There was a second interview, well, actually, after that first interview, the first scan was done. That's October 13th of 2013.
Yes.
And then there was a second interview with Dr. Olander on November 4th of 2013.
Yes.
And then the PET scan was done on December 23rd of 2013.
Yes.
So the scans are done